Hey, well, thanks for starting your morning off here today, talking through Beyond the Screen and captivating fans with an immersive experience. Want to welcome you to our panel today. I think we've got a really interesting panel. Lots of great content we'll go through, and some innovative thought and content that we'll go through that really discusses that transition between traditional media, gaming, and really how we delivered a really cool immersive experience through Unreal Engine. So our panel today is really going to explore that convergence, that digital physical convergence between the two mediums of gaming, traditional film through VR, and really bringing something to life. In this case, a franchise that I'm a huge fan of. So felt really privileged to be a part of this. Thank you. And that franchise is Harry Potter. So we're going to talk through bringing Harry Potter and VR through life, and what that looked like for the fans. And so the challenges of gameplay mechanics and what that looked like combining digital physical elements, which will be really great. We're talking about creating some of those realistic environments and really just bringing something to life that fans engaged with, felt real, and were really excited to be a part of. So today I have sitting here with two awesome folks. One is Rob DeFila. Rob is the business development director for media and entertainment at Epic Games. Yeah, totally great. Thanks for being here. This is amazing. I think it's really cool. It's to see this week all the things created through Unreal Engine, and look forward to seeing this as well. And then second, sitting here with Anthony Batt. Anthony is the co-founder and creative director at Wevr. And is really the star of our story today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks,
All right.
Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Both you guys, Rob and Jeff. I want to kind of set the stage here. So we got invited to build a Harry Potter experience from the CEO of Warner Brothers, and it was I'm just going to basically talk about that journey, and it was very specific because it was all in VR. And it was going to be location-based. So we had to sort of bridge many challenges to sort of achieve that. We built this up on Unreal 4.2 about a couple years ago. And it was multiplayer, so it was interactive multiplayer, and we had to fit it into a real physical place. So it also sort of touches this, like, how do you run a game out of home? And so I'm going to just walk you through the two experiences we made. We made one called Chaos at Hogwarts and Wizards Take Flight. And I'll probably get some questions as we go along, and then I'll explain like the ultimate challenge of like how this experience sort of shaped how we now do development and how we work with Unreal Engine and how we roll in the cloud. So a shout out to Kevin Tsujihara. He was the CEO at the time of Warner Brothers, and he sort of wanted to do something very impressive and important with VR. And this is, you have to kind of back up. This was studios weren't really sort of doing risky moves, and he is sort of like a bold leader. And so when you're doing something as creative we're going to do, you needed sort of like real creative leadership from the top. And so Kevin sort of kicked this journey off for me and my team. And if it wasn't for him, we would not have had the opportunity to do this. And it was a bold move for him because Harry Potter is like one of their most important franchises. And so I'm going to talk about how we kind of developed the stories here. So for a lot of people that are familiar with Harry Potter is still an active project for J.K. Rowling. Like we don't know if she's going to write more books or whatnot. And so when we engaged with Warner Brothers, we had to set some guidelines with her team on how to develop these stories. But at the same time, we needed some room to kind of make them work for what we were going to do. And so that was a really fun experience to try to like test those waters. The challenging thing for us was like, we wanted to actually give the wish fulfillment to the fan of flying in a broom, which was like a key thing. So this was hanging in my office. We drew like, let's get people to fly on a broom, and let's get people to push a cart through 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. And so those were sort of like two really big ideas that kind of drove the rest of the storytelling, and how we sort of like work through getting all of this approved. Because when you're on a creative journey, you have to kind of go through all these checks and balances. It's really not, can the engine do this or not? We always knew the engine could do anything we could imagine. It was like, but can we get Warner Brothers approved? Can we get J.K. Rowling's team to approve? And I'll just talk about how we survived all those sort of challenges.
We're probably just going to interrupt you this whole time,
Sure.
so I really apologize about that. But
right.
hopefully, and then we'll take that from the audience too. But a question for you, because what strikes me really is interesting here is like both of these. There's a combination of an element of real, right? There's the real broom. You have the real, platform 9 3/4 and the push cart. Is it really a coincidence that like how did you come to the creation of that foundation of the story where of those real elements? And was that a coincidence or something you planned?
No, it was pretty planned. So we always knew that we were building these experiences that were going to be put all around the world. And the original idea was that we were going to put them in pop-ups all around the world, and then it was going to be leaked online, and then you would kind of get like an email, like an owl will deliver you an email that you got invited to come and to one of these experiences.
Oh, cool.
And it was all sort of wish fulfillment for the fans. So we always knew it was going to be physical, and so we always knew that flying, we have to do flying, and we have to do something with you as a student going to Hogwarts. And so physical was always there. But before we were even dreaming of the physical, we were just actually dreaming of the story, and then we would just like the story. We would just assume that we could do the physical, which was kind of a scary bet, but that's the way we addressed it. So with Chaos at Hogwarts, that's a 10-minute like experience for 6 players, all in the same experience at the same time. And we had to kind of give you like a purpose. So everyone that's a Harry Potter fan always has a house that they're a member of, and they will imagine that they're already a student. And so we just sort of leaned into that magic, that storytelling, because we know that like if you're a fan, you're already there. So we just had to simply say, you're a student, you're going to go to Hogwarts. And so it allowed our storytelling to sort of follow that through line.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in now.
Sure, jump in.
We're at this really interesting intersection of linear content and games, and it's resulting in these type of immersive experiences that fans get to participate in. And the last 2 slides, I kept hearing story, 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 and I think that's always really critical. Is we need to have the story, and you're dealing with a huge IP like Harry Potter. I'm curious though, when you're creating an immersive experience like this, what's that balance of driving and forcing a narrative on your participants and giving them that opportunity to find their own story?
I mean, for us, that was in some case, if you weren't dealing with such a critical, story as Harry Potter, like you might need to add more story. But with Harry Potter fans, the fans that were coming to this were super fans. Yeah. They knew probably more about Harry Potter than I did. So we need to be story light. We needed to lean back, but just give enough to like pass the sniff test.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay, I'm a Hogwarts student. We had to get the details right, but not like tell them the story.
Yep.
They already knew the story. So like just kind of knowing your audience deeply is going to help drive that. So to answer your question, so we were narrative light. We needed to add enough because we have 10 minutes to move 6 people through. Yeah. So we have to have like some rails to move people along. We can't just be like, oh, you got the story in your head, now we're just bouncing you over here. So we needed to move you, but we didn't want to be too like overhanded and take their story away. We really wanted to, like for us, here it's about immersive storytelling. It's if you're fully encompassed and you're with your friend, you don't really want someone to tell you how to feel. You want to actually feel the way you feel and really provide that sort of agency. But at the same time, we needed to kind of move you along. So we had Dobby, we had Niffler to move you along, but like we really like respected the user's story.
That's awesome.
Here, but this is kind of getting to your point, Rob. But it's like, so we originally started this experience being like a quite big room. Like we were like told, Warner Bros. Was like, just go for it. And so, as a developer, you're like, okay, go for it on what platform? Like on a Switch, on a PlayStation, like it really matters. And so we were told big space. So we started to design everything in a rectangle format, and the pink box is what we ended up with. So it's like, it was like, what do you mean we're not really big? We're really small, and we're now 16 by 16, which is about as big as you can get 6 people on the stage. Because we really wanted 32, we went to like 16. We really wanted a lot of people on the stage at the same time for a lot of reasons, but we ended up with this very small space. So with story and creative, we actually had to like do a lot of redirecting walking. So this diagram was trying to explain that we have one person that's going slow, the person at the very bottom of the screen, and we have 4 people in the top. But we can't reload that scene, right? Because it would wipe out, everyone needs to see the same thing at the same time. So how do we move that person into that next chamber, which is we had to use a story element.
Right.
And we didn't want to use that all the time. In most cases, we found that the design allowed people to drift together, but there were always like, there were younger people and older people. So we had to like really time that. A lot of testing, and so we had to break this down constantly with people, and we had to do that with like real people. We couldn't like simulate it. We had to actually get 6 people standing in a space and watch how they walked, what was happening. And I know that we had discussed earlier about like how soon are we in engine, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges that you have mixing the physical and the digital, like we talk about Unreal always as the sandbox. Are you using it during this ideation phase, or are you waiting till you've got the story and you're really just it's the finished product?
Yeah, no, we started. So we had paper. We just wrote a treatment, and then we kind of got a loose blocking on that. And then what we did is we literally taped a floor, and we decided let's get 6 people on the floor because we really needed to see humans in a space. As soon as we started to get data from like just humans walking in the space, we then immediately moved to gray boxing. And so because when you're just walking in a space, you're not really responding to anything, you're just walking. And so we needed people to put headsets on and just start like walking in the space. And we're like, okay, there's a wall there. How does that slow people down? Or is there a passageway? Like, do single file like crush our throughput? How does that adjust the story? So getting an engine early is 100% our creative strategy always. And the cool thing about it is you find out happy accidents. So that's like a creative mantra I have. I always say no pressure, no diamonds. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know what's going to happen when your canvas size changes. So when we moved from a rectangle to a square, I think it was a call. There was like some debate, and then there was a call, and I got the call, and as the director, I'm just like I'm kind of defend for my team. I'm like, this is insane. This is going to blah, 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 blah. And they're like, that's the space. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay. And, and of course, those kinds of conversations don't come with like, oh, you get more money and more time. It was just like, that's the space, figure it out. And so I was like, oh my God. So I brought it back to the team. Team was really bummed out because we had all this geo and all this planning and everything was kind of dialed in. And then, it was so great. This is sort of like a hats off to engineering talent and Unreal Engine. One of our engineers just like, he's very quiet. He just like made something. And we came back and he made like an elevator shaft, which is actually in story fiction because Slytherin, which is where we're going after Gryffindor, we're going to go to Slytherin House. Slytherin House is underneath. And so he just built like a really cool shaft that went down, and it was so good. It was like we would have never found that creative discovery if we weren't challenged by making the space smaller. Like we would have just kept the redirecting walking, which was actually quite good. But like once we got everyone onto this platform and go down, I think I got a little video clip of it, but it was so great. Like you went down and then we had like the story change where the Niffler was like you're chasing the Niffler down, and then we did a drop and you land in water. I mean, it was just like, it totally made the experience like so much fun. And if we didn't got that challenge of the space, we probably would have never found that.
Another challenge, and in this, I think your world was full of challenges because one that you hadn't brought up yet was COVID.
Yeah, I mean,
and so like obviously you're talking about this like co-location, ability to put 6 people in a space, this ability to test in real life or in engine, and then you're doing this at the height of COVID.
Yeah,
how did you solve that challenge?
I mean, so this is what it looks like. This is my eng team. This is the dev team actually. They're like in testing. So like you can see it's a small space when you put 6 people in it, and so we always had to test on stage. So when COVID hit, it really challenged us because obviously Warner Brothers shut down, and then every time we had to bring anyone onto the stage, we had to go through testing. So we had an on-site testing, I forgot what they called them, specialists. So everyone had to get nose swab, but that also challenged just the way we developed. But like getting 6 people on the stage with a build takes a long time, because usually if you can't run this in editor. Like, you can't just sit there and say, hey, I'm running this in editor. And we got to get 6 full builds onto 6 backpacks and build and get it over there. So it challenged the way we built everything. The pipeline needed to like really respond. And that was one of the things that we totally underestimated when we were building this project. We were thinking like, oh, you just put the headset on, you test, but it was far more. So it could take 40 minutes to get from like, well, first of all, the build could take a very long time, and then get on stage and test. So like it really required our Q&A and testing challenged us a lot. And the COVID thing just added time. And we needed to actually get builds. We felt very challenged by having everything on-prem, so we started moving everything as fast as we could to the cloud. And I can get to that a little bit later. But yeah,
good.
And that's how we are today now. What's cool here is this is sort of like talking about the wand. So, you couldn't be in Harry Potter. You couldn't go to Hogwarts without your wand. And so this is, I'm trying to illustrate here, is that we had these, when you moved into Gryffindor, so you had a wand. The wand had a haptic in it, and it had voice activation, and it had emitting a spell. So we had to land all of that for every user and deliver the magic. Like, we would not have like passed go with the teams if we couldn't do that. And so that was just very tricky, because if you're walking, we didn't want gestures to go off. We needed the voice activation to land right when the spell comes out. So we had to engineer that and figure out how to do that. And we ended up, of course, our hardware manufacturer delivered the wands late, so we were using controllers for the longest time. Then we got wands, we had to get the haptic nailed. So it was just constant challenges. We actually were able to do it. The wands worked. In production, the wands got beat up because they got dropped and fell. And so we had to figuring out post-launch how to like manage broken wands. But the idea here was, when those pixies come up to you, you can run, you can cast the spell. And so we had a really cool thing. If you said like sort of reparo, then you set the wand in that spell mode, and then you can kind of just repeat the gesture. So you didn't have to kind of keep saying it over and over again. It was 50-50. Some kids were just wanting to scream the spells out. We also had a really cool thing, which was trial, when we actually started testing with real kids. The second you get into the volume, you see each other, the first thing they do is they do it. Like spell around. It's like the first thing. They're like, okay, we can't have you kill your friend's kids. So we had to make that spell difficult. And then if you did it like 3 times in a row, which is really cool, is we'd freeze the wand. Like technically and literally, like the wand would freeze over, and then we have a backup function that would the wand would unfreeze, and if you did it again, we'd freeze the wand again. Because it's really annoying when someone's just like trying to kill you, it's like killing your friend in there. So that was a way that we worked on that. But the wands were like, if we didn't get wands right, we almost didn't get the whole experience right, because like you're judged on like the detail. And so that was really fun to do. So when these guys fly up to you, the other thing that we're also doing is we had 150 physical specs. So we had like little tiny bottle size air jets. So right at the apex of the pixie, you'd get blasted in the face of the wind. So like it was all about like, how do you like make you feel like you're there? Like when you throw a physical effect on somebody, it actually tells the body you're really there, and you just get a whole different sort of reaction. It was really fun. We also had good.
Quick question in there. Electrical shocks, that would have been a good.
Yeah.
But if you talk about all these sensory effects and the haptics and the fans, and we saw pictures of that in volume. Do you have a playbook of things that help draw the audience into the experience, or is that like fluid kind of, you just happens like, oh, we should have a fan here and a smell here and this, like what's that process like? And it's got to be a huge thing, like you said, to really immerse them in that feeling.
Yeah, it was. Well, first, so luckily we're working with Warner Brothers, so we had like really good physical effects people. Yep. So we went to an effects shop, and I was just like, yeah, I want that, I want this, I want that, I want everything. I wanted everything, and the budget was just going bananas. But the reason why I wanted it all was actually to like test the fans, because when you spin up a fan, it might take milliseconds for the air to hit you, and it hits too much of you. And so we wanted to have like little tiny fans or air cannon to shoot a thing. So it was very fluid, but we kind of knew that like when you're hitting, then that pixie hits you right in the face. We knew that you needed the air to hit you exactly then and then stop. So it was like we had to have sort of the ingredients, and then it was all about like testing those ingredients. Mm-hmm. The one that we didn't get was there was an effect called Dragon's Breath, which is like this huge furnace that would like fire up, get a bunch of heat in there, and it just blast you right in the face when the dragon's attacking. And they're like, timeout. New York City's not allowing you to put that in there. It was just like too many like rules. And I was like, but the fan would love to have the fireball dragon breathing flame onto you. And it was like, yeah, no. So there were things that we gave up in there where there's always but we had ghosts. The ghosts were really fun. They'd pop out and scare everybody. They were translucent. They worked. We were really worried that they wouldn't work. And in the background in the Great Hall, we filmed all of our pictures because all the pictures were moving, and we just ran that as a big atlas map. We had to like really figure out how to do that. It was really fun. We made the Niffler, who's a character, and the Niffler is sort of like one of our protagonists in our story. And then we made Dobby, and Dobby spoke to you. And so one of the things that we really wanted to try to do is make Dobby as believable as possible. And that was like eye contact, and it's hard to do eye contact with 6 people. We don't know where you're standing. We kind of could get there, so we were trying to write a state machine on Dobby to kind of get you perfect, so everyone gets eye contact. So we really try to perfect that. Here's an example of Dobby.
For Dobby has brought you to Hogwarts, and there are your wands. Wait, where's the suitcase? Bad Dobby, this is a disaster. Oh, students, could you help Dobby? The suitcase must be nearby. Oh, thank you, students. Now, meet Dobby at the top of the stairs. Go, quickly. Yes, that way, through the doors. Take care, students. The stairs have minds of their own.
So that you're kind of getting like we made the ears better. Like there was a lot of things that we enhanced here. Like we overproduced Dobby because when we started getting an engine, the proximity of the Dobby, you wouldn't be able to pick these things up. And then if you heard, there was like some small little story beats in there that like a lot of people weren't getting, but if you were really close to it, we had a lot of people come multiple times and they'd say, oh, I got that. You know what I mean? So the story matters to like Harry Potter fans. Details matter like in everything, just the way everything feels, smells. And so we actually thought that just like the little tiny nuggets of that really help the user feel more embedded in her fiction.
Is your story evolving through this process? Because you're doing tests, and like you just said,
yes.
People come in like, oh, I got that the next time. So this is kind of a ever evolving process up to launch.
Yeah, well, we had to do all the face work and also the voiceover. So we banked a ton of stuff. I mean, we had more material than we could use, and we also shot stuff that we really wanted and we weren't sort of approved on in case we could kind of lobby for this and that. And so it was evolving. And of course, it's like if the experience was dragging, you'd want to actually add something.
Yep.
The redirected walking in Hogwarts was harder because of the time commitment. In the flying one, we had some elasticity in the flight path, This is cool. This is going to show you how so the other thing that I didn't mention is like when you first get in the experience, when you have your headset on, you actually walk up and grab a cart. And then you see the NPC go through. Let's get this thing. So you see that go through, and then you're compelled to push your cart.
Oh, students!
And
you told me a fright.
It was an amazing adventure. That was amazing.
Why are you not?
I'll just let you play out.
Oh, you've missed the train. Dobby must help you. Come closer. Dobby could get in trouble for aberrating with students. But not as much trouble as students will for missing the first day of term.
So this is all in headset. This is gameplay.
Around. That's it. Fear not. As you go, but be careful, for even Dobby has not mentioned there. Stay safe.
This is the staircase. This is the elevator going down. And you'll see like a Niffler fly through.
Success! Oh, well done! Now, no more spells. Very funny, students. Dobby knows what you're up to.
And then...
No.
Then you get to see a dragon that we made.
Move.
So you're right there. That dragon is like on top of you. And so when we watched players in the experience, as soon as that dragon started doing that, they all like move back. And they're like terrified. The kids, like you would see them kind of like bust out, someone lean in. But you're also called to actually use your wand to try to put that dragon to sleep through an interactive, collaborative story beat. And so you had two possible endings. You either put the dragon to sleep and its head sleeps right in front of you, or it kind of busts out of the Hogwarts and flies off. And so that was an amazing experience. The Chinese fireball dragon was never made, so we had to go through amazing approvals on that. And it was an intense scene. If you heard the rumbling, we had 38 butt kickers on the stage. The stage is completely like rumbling. Like it was like once we got it in the New York store, the other tenants were saying like our whole store is just rumbling all day long. And we were like, yeah, man, this thing's working. It was just rumbling, like amazing. So it was really great. So
one other question on that, like this is really interesting. You mentioned like the two endings, and you talked about the characterization of Dobby. I think Hagrid here in the flight. You mentioned to me earlier that you had this like dialogue database you created of every line they ever said to help them like you stay in character, because you had to follow the script, but you had to create the script. Thinking about what that looks like today, with large language models and generative AI, like how might you have changed or used that, or what does that look like in the future for you?
I mean, so our generator was like a team of interns, so they tore down all the fiction and we wrote down everything Hagrid said, like all their dialogue, all their scripts. So we didn't have the luxury of the LLMs, I think, and then we actually analyzed it, and so we stayed in queue. I think where that sort of AI would be helpful now is not necessarily to write, not to generate new stuff. It was just to kind of get the voice right, the words right. Like, so we had to like really figure out, these are the words that Hagrid would use, that he would never say anything like that. And so we did build that, and then when we wrote everything, then we sent it over to J.K. Rowling's team, and they would actually say, they wouldn't say that. And it was also like a sort of English notes that we'd get, like verse American notes. And so, but we would use that to help us. Like in pre-production, we'd be using those things now. Absolutely. In fact, we do use those now in the cloud now. We run up a stability thing in AWS, as you know, and we'd run that all there, and we'd have our interns work with that rather than just doing it all themselves. So am I good on time here? We have,
yep.
So Wizards Take Flight was a flying experience. So we made two of them. So downstairs, you'd go to Chaos at Hogwarts, you'd buy a ticket, you'd go upstairs, you'd go into Wizards Take Flight. The goal here was like absolutely flying over London, even though the story fiction for Harry Potter is like you're not supposed to use your magic outside of Hogwarts, and so you're in trouble. So the kind of conceit was like you're in trouble and you need to get back, and Hagrid's going to bring you back. And so, and when you're outside of Hogwarts, you can get attacked. And so we had these Death Eaters, and it was really sort of from the top down was like make it scary and make it more scary and make it fun, which is really great, creative directing for us because we were able to do that. We really spent a lot of time in making Death Eaters scary, and we did it because a lot of kids were like afraid. We had to tell a story of flying over London, and cost was a thing, but we had to build a big chunk of London by hand. My colleagues here kept on asking me, like, hey, did you get any assets? And the answer is like, we got no assets. Remember, these films were made years and years ago, so our Unreal Engine 4.2 like beat everything they were using 20 years ago. Like it was just like so superior. So we had to build everything. We had to build London, Hogwarts, exterior, interior, brooms, just everything. There was no assets. We had pictures. That's it. So we had great time making the story and like designing the masks. We had to design a flight path. So we had to figure out like where we're building a flight simulator. We're building a specialized flight simulator. We're flying a broom simulator, which is not like flying in a cockpit or something. You're just sitting on a broom and flying. What does that feel like? How do you stay in story and experience? And so we had to like move you through The Potter franchise is very into detail, so we had to hit key spaces, but not ever fake it. So we had to like make it work with London, and then fly you through a set of clouds, which is all that gray stuff. And inside there, we have a video of it, but it's like the video doesn't play well. But you're inside a gigantic cloud thing, and you're getting attacked by hundreds of Death Eaters. It's fantastic. It's very dramatic. It's usually the scarier point, and then gets you to Hogwarts, right? And so, in order to do that, we had to get you on a broom. So that's your game controller. The broom and you are a game controller. And we originally started on the upper left. You see that little tiny white broom? We actually hooked that up to a servo, and we were saying, well, the broom will fly you. Because one of the problems that we had with doing this was like, well, if you got on a flying broom and you have agency, everyone just flew away. Like, and it's like you become like microscopic like in a second, because the broom's going like 150 miles an hour. So you're just scattered. And so we're like, well, we can't have you do that. But everyone knows that when you're in VR, if you like move someone the wrong way, you get sick. And so we had to like balance that. And so we thought, well, if the broom flew you, then that would help us. So that it was a force feedback system. That actually turned out to be the best broom we've ever made, but it was also too expensive. So we were like, okay, how about one of my producers, Wes, is sitting on a broom on a black plate, and that we put weight sensors in that, 4 weight sensors. So any subtle move would send data saying they're leaning this way, they're leaning. So we wanted the broom to feel like a real broom. Like we didn't want it to feel anything other than a magical broom. So we experimented, and with my favorite broom would have been the weight sensor with the servo, because it gave you the best experience. At the end of the day, we ended up with the one that you see in the spotlight, which is the most cost-effective and reasonable one, and sometimes cost-effective one. But it was still a great broom. You would lean left to right and pulling up and down and work. So it actually turned out to be a fine broom. I just wanted the more expensive one. In the tail, there's a butt kicker. So anytime you're getting attacked by a Death Eater, your broom is like really shaking. Like it's a very physical broom ride. And
you talked about we've talked about this, I think, of a couple areas where you're like, hey, the fire and the feel of the air and the broom, and of course you want the more expensive one. But I think what's also interesting is like the fact that you told me this story, and maybe you can relate it again, where the visuals are so strong. Like you talked about the dragon, the fireball eating dragon, where they step back. But there's other instances, I think, where the visuals through UE and through the VR were just so good that basically the fan and someone in the experience felt like something was real, even when you didn't do anything or change a physical element, right?
Yeah, I mean, flying felt like, so the fan, so see those 2 white fans, those were like just like Target fans hooked up, we made the visuals look really good, but flying, if you do it wrong, will make you sick. You know what I mean? Like really quickly. And that was the biggest challenge. Like we had people come in and just like, hey, you can't do it. And I was like, oh, we have to do it. The fan really wants to fly on a broom. And what turned out, I think what you're kind of getting to is like, we actually got some really high-powered fans that are on variable speed, so you can get the volume of air hitting you in the most perfect way. So it mirrored the visual movement. And that just worked, right? And so like when you are flying, as you move, the air hits you just perfectly. And as you're really flying, the air is really hitting you really hard. And then when you move through clouds, we're like misting you. So it's like you're getting wet during the entire experience. You're getting fan, and like all of that collected data on the body with the visuals. We didn't have people say they got sick. We had people say, I was scared to death. Do you know what I mean? Because you're up really high and we're dropping you and you're following, and then there's Death Eaters are kind of flying in, and we had a battle system that said if you attack them, they attack you. If you don't attack them, they kind of fly up and investigate you. But because we had different kinds of players in the experience, we had like moms and dads that are like, I'm not fighting Death Eaters. So we didn't want to like just have you get like attacked the whole time. It just doesn't feel real. So if you attack them, they would just start swarming and attacking you. So we had a pretty good simulator. The flight path was, so since we couldn't give you free agency over London because you get lost, at 250 miles per hour, you're lost. Your friend becomes like on the horizon line really small really quickly. So we tried to pack you up enough and then so you're on a rail system that has agency. So we had to kind of design that and make that still believable, but like And that's where the servo wand would come in, because if you were like wanting to dive bomb a building, which everyone wants to do, we'd just like nudge you out of the way. Like in this case, you just wouldn't. The capsule would never let you get that close. And then this is a flight pan, so you're kind of seeing the orange lines, which is a terrible image I had to find on my hard drive. But so we had spawning effects of all the Death Eaters, and so you'd have to kind of clear the Death Eaters. Death Eaters would be all wand work at 250 miles per hour. We had to actually modify, since we're running on a LAN, all those brooms that you saw were hooked up to a computer on a high-speed network. We were using Unreal's version to update, but we were getting like pulsing. And so we just ended up writing an updater that just ran on our network and just said, this broom's there, that broom's there, because we needed never to have any flutter or pulse at that speed. So the speed was really intense. The drops were intense, but people really liked it. And this was a scary ride. This is kind of like the roller coaster run. And people weren't getting sick. I think I got a clip. So this is the free agency part. So we wanted people to fly around Hogwarts to kind of just get their flying legs going. And then in the story, you'd be moved to London. This is when you would get to Hagrid.
That's it. Now, on me. Push. One Freddy. Cast as many spells as you can. After me. Cast Stupefy to attack. Don't forget Protego to defend. And for goodness sake, say the spell as loud as you can. By me. Now we're close. You'll have to do better than that.
All right.
Fly towards lightning.
It's hard to see in this room.
Will be soon.
So that whole scene, it's hard to see on the screen. That whole scene was really the sort of crescendo of like attacks. So like you're in the cloud, and the Death Eaters are pouring out of a skull of clouds, and they're just raining down on you. And it's really intense, super loud. But it's kind of what the magic was about. Like if you were going to be in a Death Eater attack in a simulator, we sort of tried to like amplify it to the next level. And it was fun. And then of course you're clearing, you're just killing Death Eaters like constantly. And then you kind of drop out of the clouds, and you end up in Hogwarts. And it was a kind of a nice, friendly landing.
Anthony, real quick.
Yeah.
Jeff asked earlier kind of about the future looking and what you potentially could have used today versus back then. You talked about having to build London, and you're doing this navigating. Are you looking at things like G-splats or like something like that would be you're exploring as kind of going forward to those interesting technologies?
Yeah, we were contemplating like doing a big LiDAR scan or buying LiDAR scans of London and just like lay it out there, because so we would do with G-splats. We would actually do that. The problem was like with the fluidity of the story. Like at one point, the story we're like dive bombing Millennial Bridge, and we were cruising the bridge, and then we're ripping through some buildings. So like we almost never like knew exactly what not to build and what to build. And I think in the newer one, we would procedurally generate much more of London.
Yep.
We'd probably would explore just like painting London really quickly and like nailing the key pieces. And but we did contemplate that. The other thing was like, it sometimes is like, even though the tech is there, like if your team's not capable of doing it in the time frame that you're in, there's a challenge there. So like with our special effects, I don't know if anyone knows Beyond Effects, but like we worked with them to sort of nail our effects. Like there were things that we just knew our team needed exterior other teams to help us with. So like with Gaussians and LiDAR, we would probably just hire some folks. So kind of telling you how difficult all this was, and we survived. But one of the ones was like the COVID. And so like we were running, like a lot of our development was just running on-prem, but we like when we had to go like, hey, everyone's off, like we had to quickly shift everyone to like remote development. And even though that like we had a Perforce server, like we had to figure out like this is unsafe for us, like to like have everything on-prem. If you can't get to the premise, like how can you work? And so we had a couple things that were like working against us. You actually had to work on premise because the stage was there. But like when you weren't there, like how are you working? And so we went from like working together to just like working in Zooms. Like me convincing J.K. Rowling's team we can do it, even though I had no idea if we could. Me convincing Warner Brothers we could do it, even though I know I couldn't. But I just knew the team needed to like continue moving forward. And so we were able to actually move pretty fast to the cloud very quickly. And we contemplated actually using like full like Maya builds in the cloud as well, because a lot of the workstations, but we ended up just taking the workstations home and getting people there. But it really forced our thinking about how do we keep our teams, now fully remote working. So today we have like all of our builds in the cloud. We wrote a virtual studio system so everyone can work remotely. And we have 3 productions that are all running on Unreal, in a Git workflow, all working remotely. So we use all the cloud services that Amazon has to offer, and it just really works. Like we're not running into like really any headwinds there. And then oftentimes like, okay, we're bridging a Perforce build, we're bridging an SVN system. So we figured that we always want to now be both have the ability to be in cloud and on-prem whenever we want, whenever we choose. But we're never going to be like left in a situation where we're like only stuck in one space. It was just too threatening for us. And the cloud's gotten that good, so we can do it. And like one of the things that we're doing right now is we're spinning up. We have Docker builds of Windows runners, so that anybody on the art team can just say, I want to run a build of this thing, and they don't have to ask anybody. They just hit a button, spins up a runner in the cloud. It has the right build of our engine in it. It runs, does renders, does whatever, runs a full build, but it also will download it and push it to like their headset or their desktop. So they don't have to do anything. It's just one button push, done. Which is magical for the art team. We did finally ship. It opened up. The Harry Potter store opened up. Fans queued. They queued for weeks. It was pretty much always sold out. It would still be there today if it wasn't for like all the other stuff that was happening at Warner Brothers. But like we are now in discussions to figure out what we're going to do next. But it was a journey. I would say that in some creative endeavors, like the technology might be the harder thing, but like to me, we had a pretty good master control of Unreal Engine. We knew that anything we asked it could do. So we were never really challenged there. It was always the challenge of like, how do we get everything working? The IRL, all the audio, all the special effects, like just corralling that creatively, and then the next orbital shell, like corralling stakeholders, was a challenge. And then finally, the COVID challenge. But we kind of worked through all that. But we never were afraid of the engine. The engine was always there, that was never our problem. So creatively, it's just like all of it together. And I think a lot of times when you go to, you hear talks, they're talking about a very specific thing. And I'm trying to say that as like on a creative journey, there's like many things that you got to overcome the challenges of. And luckily, we're able to pull that off. If you go on YouTube, you can, if you want to watch, but you can just watch fans coming out of it, just like crying or having the best time of their lives. So like that was like the best reward was like, just going and watching. Like I just went, like and just watched people play. You know what I mean? And just it was just like, yeah, man, that was so cool that they loved it. And
go ahead.
You did this in 4.2.
Yeah, 4.2. Which at the time was the best.
Yeah, it was like eons ago.
Yeah, it was. We're 5.5 now.
Yeah, so looking ahead, you're talking about doing a new experience. Like, are there things that you're excited about in 5 that like, oh, I can't wait to get my hands on that, change the experience?
Yeah, we really, really like I think we really want to animate right in engine. Mm-hmm. I think that's like a real win for us. Maybe not everything, but the things that where it can really improve our working experience, because we feel that switching from different apps is a pain. You know what I mean? So like the more we can do there. Obviously all the lighting. So like our lighting was baked, but like obviously what really sells the stories, and certainly with Harry Potter, because a lot of people have the visuals of the film or they have the book. You know what I mean? And so we think that the thing we're looking for is like dynamic lighting in VR, like what that looks like. Like we're really excited about everything we heard
Yeah.
with the, what was it called, Megalight or
Megalights.
Megalights.
Yep.
Man, so we really, I would say that's like lighting and animation are probably the things that we're most
On that new technology side as well, with headsets and the changes that have happened between now and then, and Apple Vision Pro and the fidelity, are those things also that you're looking at
yeah, I mean, I think
the experience?
So we're working with HTC on all their new headsets. They're all Snapdragon. So
Yep.
I think that like it was really good to hear at the keynote how Snapdragon and Unreal are working
Yep.
a lot closer. I think for us, like right now, the experience that we're working on are like 100-person volumes. So like you get 100 people in, and they're experiencing independent stuff. So we're always going to be sort of, in those cases, like running on Snapdragon. Yep. So we really want to push it to the limit. Mm-hmm. And we want to know where like Epic kind of help us push it onto that hardware. Yep. And the fidelity matters. But in some, like, it's weird, like Harry Potter, fidelity matters. But to me, it's about like, is it fun? Are you getting the right emotion? And sometimes the graphics aren't the key thing. It's like the feeling. So, we'll see. We are using 5.4 right now on those two experiences, and we're going to push that to the limit for sure. And they're both fantastic experiences, totally different in the way they look.
Do you lock your versions? You start a ride. Are you hooked in, locked, so that you don't do any upgrades during mid-production?
Yeah, we don't, unless it's absolutely necessary. Like we think we're on 5. Like it was really weird. Like some point releases, like we're already in development. It's like 5.4 is kind of like locked, but we don't know if we don't know if we can go a year of 5.4.
Yeah.
And then update. We don't know, but generally we don't do any engine updates either. So we're not updating the engine, the source code. So it's like so if we could stay on 5.4 and 5.5 can like just give us an extra level of fidelity in some of the part in whatever storytelling, we would move. But we do feel more comfortable just locked.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I know we've asked you a bajillion questions. Thank you. It was really awesome to see this convergence of gaming and real life experiences and just that blend. But I think we'll open it up to the floor, make sure that folks here can ask questions and go from there. Thank you, Anthony.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks.